Darren, first of all, hadn't had a chance to really sit down and talk with you yet. Let me just start by saying welcome to New Orleans.
I appreciate that
here.
very much, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Why New Orleans? What brought you here?
That's a great question. Fortunately for me, when the season was over in Miami with all the turnover there, I had some options. And, obviously I've gotten a chance to know the organization pretty well. I've got some people in the building that I've worked with before. I've obviously been very close with Dan Campbell, Jeff Ireland. These are guys that I've known, Ryan Herman, just to name a few. And always from afar, I've always really, really respected the organization. A class place, obviously a winning organization. And once I got a chance to really spend some time with Coach Payton, ironically enough, I saw Coach Payton, unfortunately, up at Tony Sperano's funeral this past summer, and I've always known Coach Payton kind of through Tony a little bit, and Tony was a close personal friend, and so from those relationships, that's kind of what started it. Was kind of the catalyst, and then once I got here and really got to know Sean really well and Mickey and everybody else, it really became an easy decision for me.
Good. I think you'll find it most welcoming here as well with those guys as well. Darren, tell me this though: how does a Jersey kid who played tight end in college all of a sudden find the right footpath to being a special teams guru? What works there? I mean, how did you get that started?
That's a great question. So I spent 1 year, my first year, I was a graduate assistant at Colgate University. I coached the tight ends, which is what I played, so that was easy. And then, talking about Tony Sperano, he comes up again. So Tony hired me at the University of New Haven, and they had one full-time position open. I go and interview, and it was for the defensive line. I go down, and I interview for the job. I get the job. And while I'm on the interview, he says, by the way, you're going to be the special teams coordinator. And so here I am at 24 years old. I played a little bit of special teams in college. I was a long snapper for a little bit and covered some punts and kicks. But he said, this is it. In Division II, you didn't have a lot of resources. So at that point, it was kind of baptism by fire. And so I since that year, that was 1994. There's never been a year I wasn't a special teams coach. And I've been a head coach at some smaller colleges and some big colleges, and obviously the Dolphins. And, for the last going to be my 25th year right here of coaching special teams, that'll be ever since.
That's worked out pretty well for a choice you didn't get to make.
I know it was forced on me,
yes.
and now look. Yeah.
No doubt. Hey, before I get to what this weekend could mean for your unit, what are your thoughts about what you've inherited here in New Orleans? Whether it be Will Lutz or Thomas Morstead or any of the other aspects of that special teams unit.
Well, the first thing I'll say is I'm very excited. Special teams is a little bit of a unique deal when you're at another team. You kind of keep an eye on the rest of the 31 teams. It's you watch a little bit more film than you would on offense and defense of the other teams in the league. And so I've always had an eye on the Saints and always watched their specialists. Thomas Morstead, I joke with Thomas, when I got into the league, he was the very first player that I evaluated coming out of college.
Wow.
He was the very first guy I wrote a scouting report and a draft report on. And so him and I joked about it. He goes, I'll bet you I know exactly what it said. And so we had a good laugh. But Thomas has obviously been a cornerstone here for the last 10 years. Will's had tremendous success the last couple of years. And it really starts with those guys. You look at what we did last year on special teams, and that was the strength of our special teams unit. Thomas and Will, and certainly our punt coverage. And, some of the core players really, really excited to work with. Banjo, Robertson, Hardy, those guys all had really, really good years last year, and not just to mention a few. And so I think we have a really, really good nucleus, and anybody else we're going to add here is just going to really just add on to those guys.
Yeah. When you look at Coach Rizzi's body of work, you'll notice one thing. He takes young players, those who play on special teams, and he puts them in positions to succeed. You've produced all rookie guys, Pro Bowl guys, just based on special teams play. What's your secret? How have you been able to take those young guys and translate that success?
I think it starts with a mentality. First, when those guys come in right away, I think it's really, really important with the younger players, the rookies. A lot of them will be coming from colleges where maybe they were the star or maybe they didn't have to play a lot of special teams. So initially, right away, getting that mentality and making them understand how important and what an integral part of the game it is, especially in our league. And so I think it starts with that. Once we get the mentality down, we kind of try to put them in positions to be successful. Every player obviously has a special, unique set of talents, skill-wise. And so special teams is so diverse. You're able to kind of, it's kind of a chess game, so to speak. You can move guys around in certain aspects. There's a lot of matchups that are important. And so we try to put guys in position to succeed, whether that's in coverage, in the return game, a returner with the ball, and whatever it is. And so I've been fortunate to have a lot of success with some of those young guys, whether it's a specialist, or a core player, or transitioning a running back into special teams core player. And so, that's going to be no different here. We're going to take, we have a lot of late round picks this year, and hopefully some of those guys are going to be guys that come in and can contribute for us right away.
Yeah, I think that probably that is going to be the case. This is for so many of the 270 some odd guys that will be selected over the weekend. This will be your first draft under Mickey, Jeff, and Sean, and I'm curious as to what they've told you about what they want from you over the next 3 days or so.
Well, I think our draft, the process leading up to the draft here is outstanding. You know, Jeff Ireland and Mickey, those guys have done a tremendous job. Obviously, I've worked with Jeff before, so him and I are a little bit on the same page in terms of, you know, what we're looking for. And you know, in our draft meetings, you know, with a lot of the positions, you know, I was able to have some input and watch a bunch of players, and Jeff and the staff had me watch a bunch of guys leading up to the draft. I think when we get to the later rounds, you know, I call Saturday special teams day in the draft. You know, those guys are the guys who are going to be fighting to make the back half of your roster, and usually are going to be some core special teamers. So, you know, I know when we get into Saturday, you know, specifically, you know, I know my opinion will be asked about some of the guys that, you know, we watch throughout the process, and you know, sometimes it's a guy that might not have played special teams. Sometimes it's an evaluation of maybe their talent or on offense or defense and how that will transition. And maybe it's a projection. So, you know, the communication here is really, really strong with our coaching staff and the front office, and I've been impressed by that.
And Darren, when you get to Saturday and those players come up, what will be the thing that you say is most important about perhaps getting that special teams guy? Is there a measurable? Is there an aspect of their mentality or their football IQ that you must have in order to make him a successful special teams player?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think, you know, in special teams, you end up playing in space more than any other aspect of the game. And so you're really looking for space players. And they could be bigger players, which is fine. They could be smaller guys. But you really want to see guys that have had success in the open field, whether that's on offense with the ball in their hand or on defense, you know, making plays in the open space, whether it's defensive backs or linebackers on the second level, because, you know, obviously you have to cover a lot of ground on special teams. Yeah. And, you know, whether it's blocking in the return game or whether it's covering and tackling a guy in the open field, there's no other aspect of the game where you're covering that much space. And so that's kind of the single thing that we're looking for when we're evaluating those guys, is guys that can play well in space, have good feet, have good hips, you know, and movement skills.
I have a feeling I'm going to be smarter every time I talk to you. Welcome to New Orleans. Coach,
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thank you.